Hi, everyone, and welcome back to On the Right Side of History with Kansans for Life. I'm Danielle Underwood, your host. Today, I'm speaking with Kansas State Treasurer Stephen Johnson and Representative Susan Estes about an exciting new opportunity for families interested in adopting beginning July 1st. That's right, Kansans will soon be able to open a special savings account to help cover the cost of adopting a child, with tax benefits and generous contribution limits. Here to help us understand the ins and outs of this exciting program is State Treasurer Johnson, who was elected to his current position in 2022 and previously served as a state legislator for more than 10 years. Treasurer Johnson's office oversees the Pregnancy Compassion Awareness Program we discussed in episode 16, which provides $3 million in funding for pregnancy resource centers in Kansas, as well as other important finance-related programs. Welcome, Treasurer.
Great to be with you, Danielle.
And State Representative Susan Estes is a former educator who was elected as a member of the Kansas House in 2020. She and her husband, U.S. Congressman Ron Estes, appeared together on the podcast in episode 30. So you might want to go back and watch that. And it's great to see you again, Representative Estes.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're so grateful to you for joining. Well, I kind of gave a little bit of a tease about this. And before we get into the nuts and bolts about the program itself, I understand, Representative Estes, that this was kind of your brainchild. You had this brainstorm and you brought this to your colleagues in the House. And I'm wondering how the thought first came to you that this was needed.
The final idea came to me in a flash, but it really started years ago when I was watching my own friends have struggles with adoptions. One friend never dreamed that they would be able to adopt, and they were wonderful people. I knew they'd be amazing parents, and that I knew there were children who needed forever homes. And until there was an unexpected inheritance, they never dreamed that it could happen for them. And I thought, man, it's wrong that we have all these children who want a loving home and loving homes that want these children, and it's beyond somebody's financial means. And then I had another friend who had an adoption, and it ended up costing way more than they planned. So by the time they were done with the process, the idea of furnishing a nursery was scary to them. And lucky for them, I had some hand-me-down nursery items ready to go. But it's almost like adoption can be a financial devastating event. And I was visiting with another legislator who had one of the most egregious stories of everything that could go wrong in an adoption go wrong. And when he was telling me this story, kind of standing behind him was the legislator who carried the first time homebuyer bill. And I just immediately thought to myself, we need a first time homebuyer bill for those who want to adopt. And, it just hit like a flash. And the idea of helping connect children and families just seemed very natural.
That's wonderful. So you brought this bill forward in 2024. And I know that there was a long process that went into, not only its passage, but then planning that it was written that there would be a year to implement this. And so, as we mentioned at the beginning, these will go live on July 1st. So I'm wondering, you mentioned this, you already alluded to this briefly, about the kinds of hurdles that families encounter when they're wanting to adopt. Do we know roughly how much it costs now for an average adoption?
Oh, at the time I had that number nailed down, but I do recall as we are actually one of the highest costs in the state and in the nation. And I think our state tries to be very generous. If you're adopting a child out of the foster care system, the state bears most of that burden. But even so, there are still other expenses that don't get covered. And when we heard testimony on this bill in both the House and the Senate committees, I was really struck by one family in particular that had done everything responsibly. They planned, they lined out what their costs should be. They saved that amount of money. They saved a cushion for in case something went wrong, and things did go wrong. And they were adopting a older child that most people would be hesitant to enter into that relationship. And but they had no qualms. They loved this little girl. They wanted to give her a great home, and as things went wrong during their adoption, they actually had to raid their family's health savings that they had set aside for emergencies in their own family. And it took them years to recover. And adoption is such a loving act. You don't want it to wipe out a family
Mm.
because things will go wrong. Moms change their minds. Birth fathers can feel differently, and you have to be prepared. And the state has an interest in helping to find a wonderful, loving home for children. So it was just a natural space for us to be in.
Hmm. So those costs can vary then. It sounds like, we may see certain costs for adopting foster children, maybe a different amount for an international adoption or a special needs adoption. There's lots of different categories and varying costs. But the important,
I think that price, I think that ranged between 40 and 70,000.
wow,
There's such a range, and depending on the complexity and how smoothly things go, but it's a far more than people realize.
okay. But what a beautiful decision for a family to make to welcome a child into their home, and we fully support that. Of course, those of us in the pro life movement. So then, Treasurer Johnson, why don't you kind of talk to us about those nuts and bolts? So, what exactly can the money that's saved in these special tax advantaged accounts? What can they be? What can that be used for?
Yes. So Representative Estes and the team wrote it very broad so that any reasonable expense that is associated generally will qualify to be used for those funds. But it's things, it can be the attorney's fees that are there, maybe an adoption agency has been involved. You go through medical expenses for the mother, the child, perhaps, and even to reasonable housing expenses for the mother during pregnancy is written in as available costs that could be covered.
Okay. And then is the family, are they the only ones that can possibly fund this, or can others help? Because that's what I'm wondering. We see these things that are crowdfunded, right? We see all kinds of, good, positive initiatives that other people can help contribute. And so the first question I thought of was, could a grandparent help? Could they, deposit money into these accounts, or how is it written to account for that?
So, great question. And the representative and team did think of that and wrote it so that others can contribute because it is truly a huge life milestone. And how does all of that support network be able to work towards that?
Mm-hmm.
So, there are limits on how much can be contributed to the account, but it is set so that it can certainly be a big first step to possibly cover the entire amount, depending on the time that folks plan and everyone that participates.
That's
And
wonderful.
I'm surprised, but not surprised, that there are some churches who are looking at that as helping families to adopt as part of their mission as a church. So when I heard that the first time, I was shocked, but then I was like, "Well, that's just what a church should be doing," and was thrilled. So I'll pitch that out there. So if anybody's thinking about it, they can talk to their church.
I love that. It makes me think of that movie. What is the Possum Trot movie? Are you familiar with that movie? It was about a church that really encouraged its members to adopt. And, between all the members of the church, I can't even remember how many children were adopted by the families. But they decided that was part of their mission, was to make sure that these children had forever homes and families, and they were enfolded in that church community. And it's really amazing what can happen when people do come together in that way. So that's wonderful. So, okay. So that's one part of it. So you have an ability to save, and you have the ability for family members and friends and others who see this dream that this couple has, and they want to adopt that baby or that child, whatever age. What are the tax advantages? Because that's really kind of the game changer here, is that there is now a way to do this in a way that benefits, not only allows people to pool money, but also benefits them and they're on the tax side.
Right.
Okay, so this is where we get weedy,
yeah,
and where I sometimes, my thinking brain, I don't always understand all the tax code.
oh, it's fairly simple on that.
Perfect.
But and that again is where the legislature, led by Representative Estes, was looking at how can the state help, and that's through those tax benefits. So each year you can deduct up to $6,000 per person that is contributing to the account on your taxes. If it's a joint account, you can deduct up to $12,000. So that comes off your state income tax. It is a Kansas program. It's not a federal program. So it is a state income tax deduction. And then the earnings that you have on that account grow and are tax-free in the state. So still taxable federally, but it gives us a state tax break that can help add just a few more dollars to that account for the support that the state and the state legislature wanted to express in helping that family achieve that important goal.
Okay, so there's two sides to that. First of all,
Correct.
you get to deduct it from your earnings and when you go to file your taxes. So
Mhm.
you're not taxed on those. And then whatever it earns, so it's invested in something. What are these invested in? Or is that at the discretion of the person who's opening the account?
So that it is limited to investments in a bank or credit union that's chartered, either by the state or federally and operates in Kansas. But if you go to your financial institution, they are able to open that account. And that would then go into a savings product of some form. It does have the federal insurance, either FDIC or NCUA through the credit unions, but that is the set of opportunities that we have. It's typically a shorter term goal, so we aren't looking at the more variable investments that we might over something that we're looking at a decade or more to implement.
Right. So these are safer investments.
Right,
Could be like a certificate of deposit or
right.
something like that. That's going to bring some earnings, hopefully keep you ahead of inflation or at least on pace there.
At least give us something. So
Yeah.
short-term rates have been good recently. Don't necessarily know what they'll be, but looking at that, am I just going to look at a flexible account? Some of our daily rates are still pretty good. If I know I'm there for a year or 2 years, I could pick whatever product is working with the financial institution.
Okay.
But an important piece of that, as we roll these programs out, we know that those of us that want to invest in them know about it, but not every bank does. So if I'm out in Assaria, Kansas, and I go to my nearest bank, I wouldn't be surprised if they have not heard about it with everything that they manage. So we want to get that word out, but this is a new program. So we're really looking forward to who will open the first account.
Yeah.
But the first account will probably be known by the family that wants to adopt and not that financial institution.
Mm-hmm.
We'd actually like to get some pictures of when that happens. But anyway, that's where we would go to open those accounts.
Okay. So it's going to be a little bit in the hands of that family to say, this is what we'd like to do, and here's the information. So they'll be able to, I'm assuming, go to your website and
Yes.
pull down a lot of information that they can then bring to their bank and, say, this is what we're doing. And the bank is going to say, this looks great. We can work with you on this.
They can, exactly.
Okay.
And just to put a little more color around that, the website does have the information. If you go to treasurer.ks.gov, you will find information under our Savings Programs tab. So look for the Adoption Savings Account, and the information will be there. It is possible that in talking to my bank or credit union, they'll go, I haven't heard of this. I don't know how to do it. And we have one of the people who opened one of the first home buyer savings account, again, similar concept, went to the bank, and the bank said, we haven't heard of it. And he started questioning himself. He says, am I right or not? And you are. So plow forward, send us an email at the Treasurer's Office, specifically email Tom Tracy, but Tom, Tom, @treasurer.ks.gov. we're glad to walk through it with you and make sure if the bank has any questions that doesn't hold you up. We want to make sure that you can get it open, be confident in the reporting that you want to do with the state of Kansas, and move on towards the goal.
All right. So all of you who are listening, either you or someone you know and love could be the forerunner of this new exciting program. So, and I'm hearing loud and clear that you all are so ready and willing to help.
Yes,
And
and we would love to hear from that first person opening the
yes,
account. So
that'll be an exciting moment. And
hopefully on July 2, right after it goes live.
yeah, and to encourage others to get in and do the same. So I think my next question then would be, so Treasurer Johnson, your office is tasked with helping financial institutions to get on board. And so that's part of our reason here for speaking and for educating Kansans about this program. And I know Representative Estes, you've been working hard at doing that as well. So what is your pitch to encourage both the institutions and the families to participate in this?
So we have a multifaceted pitch on the savings program, and we've worked to build a good relationship with the KBA and the Credit Union Association. And we're working with them currently on some other programs, a collateral pool and other things that they want. And in that communication, we've tried to find financial institutions that want to partner with us on each of these. So we finally have our first one on the home buyer program, and they're doing an intro next week, and we'll talk about that particular one. With each, we talk about what programs are available. We don't have the ability to push that data and make them pick it up, but it's a chance for just educating them on what's available and mostly trying to make sure they know where to go if someone comes in and they have a question about what they need to do with any of those programs. We do have both the website, we have a flyer that we send out. We are working to come up with yet better and better ideas about how to get that information to be picked up.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Anything you'd like to add to that, Representative Estes?
I think each of us can work our own networks, especially those of us in the pro-life community. We're very close to people who believe in adoption. And the more we share this with our friends, and we each have our own sphere of influence through our own personal interactions and our social media, that we can push that out there. But I really would like to thank Treasurer Johnson. They've really gone above and beyond on preparing some promotional materials. It's been fun for me to watch how excited they are for this idea, and they've put in a lot of good work.
That's great. It's good to have a good team working together. All right, so we've already covered who can contribute to the accounts besides the holder. Did you mention already the maximum? Okay, so what is the maximum that could be held in one of these accounts?
So the maximum in the account is 48,000 for one that is owned individually and 96,000 for one that is owned jointly. That was a problem in one of the others that Representative Estes fixed to make sure that a jointly owned account could have a higher balance. So the hope being that in a jointly owned account, you could come pretty close to fully funding most of the adoptions that would be set up.
Mm-hmm. So that would mean a married couple filing jointly. Okay. Well,
Yes,
yeah.
or a family can be prepared, be thinking about their second adoption as well.
Great
That's
point.
a great idea. Yes. So it can be used for the adoption of more than one child, because so many times I've heard so many stories about families once they adopt that first child, it's like it almost whets their appetite, and they have so much love to give, and it went so well for them that they want their family to continue growing. So that does mean that there would still, if there's funds left, they can apply that to the next adoption. That's wonderful.
Absolutely. And some families are adopting siblings, they're helping to keep siblings intact. And that's certainly something that I think is a beautiful thing for a family to do.
That's a fantastic point. All right. Well, is there anything else either of you would like to make sure that we convey to people as this is really a great opportunity for you to introduce this to the public. I know you'll probably be rolling out campaigns to help keep this word spreading. And like you said, Representative Estes, we can all play a part in making sure that the word keeps spreading, that this is a new, exciting opportunity. Is there anything else we need to make sure people understand about this new program?
Well, as you had both mentioned, word of mouth is the way it will spread the most effectively. So if through our network that can become known, I think that will be the most effective at actually seeing implementation. And I just look forward to those stories where we can get it. So I really appreciate the help to share it to everyone who's able to listen today.
And I think sharing links from this podcast and from the video that the treasurer has embedded on his website will help people to understand what's available to them.
Great point. That is an excellent point. And since we have just a few extra minutes, I know that, as I mentioned in the beginning, your office is also overseeing the Pregnancy Compassion Awareness Program that many of our listeners have heard about. And I know, Representative Estes, you were involved in that effort as well. Now there's $3 million that's been allocated for that program going directly to those organizations that are offering that pregnancy support, pro-life pregnancy support. Is there any kind of update you'd like us to know about what's happening with that? It's still relatively new. We're just entering the third year of that program. So is there anything you'd like us to know about that?
Another initiative that the legislature had to think and how to care for families and that we get to implement. So in the first year's report was for the first 10 months of activity. And so the exact numbers are a little old in that. I'm really looking forward to the report that will come out at the end of this month with the update of data, because I think it will look materially different than the materials that we have for statistics. But the stories that have come out and the lives that have been impacted, where folks went to those centers, that got the care, that got the counseling, that whatever it was that they needed at that point is so important. And each of these is so individual that it is really important, whether the story was from the mother that was a college student or was concerned about finances or who didn't have support of the father, or wherever that story was coming from. All of those have come to that network and been able to be helped. So those are the most compelling as you go through, just knowing that individual story. So the groups that are there, we've been fortunate to have a number of the pregnancy centers, maternity homes, adoption agencies, and social service organizations have been on board. Out of the gate, they had 16 different agencies across the state signed up. They had a map to almost 30. I'm guessing we are well north of that number in how many agencies there are. And looking at even the initial map, there was access to those services from every county. And that organization has just been committed to making sure that that is what they offer in the state through the program.
That's really exciting to hear. We, of course, are huge supporters of our friends and the Pregnancy Resource, that whole network of organizations that do such beautiful work with mothers, with families. We have heard wonderful stories coming from them as well about, the expansion of the resources that they've been able to offer to these women. And, expanding their services, expanding, even being able to offer some bilingual support, all kinds of resources that they're providing. So it's interesting to watch. Anytime there's a new program, I think you always have the early adopters, right? So the ones who were just willing to jump in and they wanted to figure it out and they got going, and wow, they saw what a huge impact it made on their organizations. And I think they've been spreading the word to their counterparts throughout the state. So I'm assuming, just like you are, that we're going to see quite an increase in the number of participating organizations that are able to work with that program and serving directly those mothers, those women who, may be coming from difficult situations and difficult pregnancies, and the ways that they're able to support life through that.
And the key to making it work was the legislature's foresight, making it possible, Kansans coming together, and a group forming an entity that could meet those requirements and deliver on a dime. I mean, there was no turnaround time. It had to happen. And then each of those agencies that stepped in to actually make it happen. So it was exciting to see it come together.
Yeah. So maybe you could explain your office's role in that program, because it may be a little bit blurry for people who are less familiar.
And it is limited. So as the legislature went through the program, they directed it to the treasurer's office to go through the process of selecting the entity and making sure that we just shepherded it through the state procurement office so that it was done as timely as we could make it happen through the state procurement office. And there are some challenges that go along with that, but that was our main challenge to get through. We then were blessed with options to consider of who would be able to do it. Within that, each of the requirements eliminated some of our choices, but we were lucky to have one that continued to stand out and continued to perform. So ours was to name the agency and just handle the flow of the funds. So pretty boring functionality of getting it through. We can't take credit for the good work that is done.
But crucial.
Yes. But the key step to implementing is what we were charged with.
Got it. Yeah. Well, I know that was also, that was reassuring for the pregnancy centers as well, that there was a little bit of a buffer between them and the state, because I know, from a small nonprofit organization's perspective, I think they were worried about having, too much infringement on the way that they were operating. And so I think it seems like it was a very nice balance, that there is state involvement in a limited sense to make sure that they're high quality organizations that are doing their work in a very reputable, very clean way, but at the same time that they are free to deliver those services the way that they need to do.
Yes. And my team was key there. And that even goes back to maybe Treasurer Estes and former folks. Having the staff with the talent to be able to step up and work through that process wasn't a set of talent that was available everywhere. So I was lucky to have the right team that could implement.
That's great. Representative Estes, is there anything you want to add on to that conversation?
Not about that topic, other than it's just been so wonderful to sit back and see this work, because the state does have an interest and a desire to support the ladies who would like to be moms and make that feasible, and partner along them and be with them, because not everybody has a good support system. So I love seeing that.
Mm-hmm. And this is probably a good opportunity to remind everyone that both of these programs that we're talking about now required a veto override, and they encountered a lot of opposition from the governor. So absolutely, thanks to both of you I know that you spoke as a proponent of these adoption savings accounts, and Representative Estes for carrying that bill to make sure that that happened, and then also for your work to make sure that this pregnancy compassion awareness program is so well run and just functioning beautifully in the state. So thank you for all of your work on both of those items.
Well, those things happened with some other help. So I would also like to thank Julie Samaniego, who helped us from the adoption professional side and understanding the depth of the issues that were out there. The Kansas Bankers Association and the Kansas Credit Union Association and Treasurer Johnson's office, they all stepped up to the plate, took a look at the bill, gave their input, showed up and said, this is important and we stand behind this idea. And that helps get an idea across the finish line.
That's great. All right. One more time, would you please share the website that our friends can go to see all of these details in writing about these new adoption savings accounts?
Yes, thank you. Our site is treasurer.ks.gov, treasurer, treasurer.ks.gov. And the savings program tab, you'll see that button right at the top of the page, and that will lead you where you need to go. Any questions, interact with us through that site, or as I'd mentioned before, Tom at treasurer.ks.gov is another email who is great who has the right heart as well as the right mind to answer the questions.
Excellent. And I could foresee a future podcast where we invite that family on to come and tell us about
That would be great.
That would be fantastic. So we will definitely look forward to that opportunity, because I know we're going to have some beautiful stories coming out of the state about some incredible families that are able to come together through adoption because of this new program. So thank you, Treasurer Johnson, and thank you, Representative Estes, again, for joining us on today's podcast. We appreciate your help unpacking this topic, and we're excited to hear those testimonies in the future.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
My pleasure.
And thank you to all of you for listening today. Want to know what you can do to help this podcast reach more people? It's easy. Hit the like button, leave us a 5-star review, or send this podcast to a friend. That's a wrap on this season of On the Right Side of History with Kansans for Life. But don't worry, we'll be back again soon after a short break with new topics, interesting takes on current events, and powerful personal stories mixed in. Have an idea to share with us? Send an email to kfl@kfl.org. Lastly, remember you can help support our efforts while drinking delicious coffee with a pro-life cause when you purchase 7 Weeks coffee through the link on our website at kfl.org. Until next time, never forget, the pro-life movement is on the right side of history. Stay strong. The truth will overcome. Thanks, friends, and we'll see you soon.